All right. Hey, Dr. Patrick Jones here. I think we're warming up and getting ready to get going. I'm only seeing like the top half of my head on my screen. Is that okay, Evan? Is everyone else seeing the bottom half?
Yeah.
Okay. The bottom half's the good half. I mean, you know. Okay. All right. So anyway, Doc Jones here from the Homegrown Herbalist School of Botanical Medicine. We're excited to have you at our webinar. We're going to be talking about herbal pain management. And before we start, I just want to welcome everybody and thank you for coming. I know some of you guys are back on the East Coast, and it's like 9 o'clock back there, so we appreciate you staying up. We're going to be having a little giveaway here tonight for all of you faithful folks that have joined us. We're going to be giving away a couple of books. We've got my new book, The Homegrown Herbalist Guide to Medicinal Weeds. And we just came out with this one. And not only does this book have a very nice dandelion on the cover, but there's also a staggeringly handsome veterinarian on the back of it. So that's fun, right? And it's got words and pictures and everything. So I think you'll like this book. Anyway, if you share the video or the webinar or whatever it is, there's a little button down there that says share. Click that and share it with your Facebook buddies or whatever, and then put in the comments, just write share in the comments that says you did it, and Evan will randomly pick a couple of winners to get a book, and we'll ship them to you. All right. Also, if you'd like a PDF of this presentation, I'd be delighted to send that to you. Just send an email to info@homegrownherbalist.net, info@homegrownherbalist.net, and we'll shoot you the slides so you can have a PDF of that. So, all right, very good. So let's go ahead and get started. There's a disclaimer here. You should probably pause this and read this. It says all the important things like that I'm not your doctor and you shouldn't believe anything I say. And then also, this material is copyrighted. We'd appreciate it if you didn't share it unless you asked if you could share it. That would be nice, right? So I'm Dr. Patrick Jones. I'm a veterinarian, and I'm a clinical herbalist, and I'm a traditional naturopath. So we have a veterinary practice, and we have a naturopath practice, and a lot of the people and critters that come and see me because they hurt. And so we have had a lot of experience with pain management. Not only that, I'm the father of 15 children, many of whom have told me over the years that I'm a big pain. So we have a real handle on this subject. You're not just talking to anybody here. This is a guy that really understands pain. So anyway, let's get started, shall we? Pain management with herbs. Okay. So, just pain is actually a good thing. Pain is your friend, and the reason we have pain is to protect us, right? From scary things that hurt us, right? Like fire and sharp knives and exercise equipment, things like that make us hurt, and so we know we shouldn't go near those things. And it's to protect our body from further damage, and it's really pretty essential. One of the leprosy, Hansen's disease, where people's fingers fall off and they have all kinds of, horrible problems with their flesh. It's actually not so much a problem with their flesh as it is with their nerves. And what happens with those guys with leprosy is that the nerves stop feeling pain. And so every little thing, like you're turning a key in a lock and you don't know when to quit. So you tear up your fingers and they have, wounds and infections. They don't feel that their fingers infected and sore, and they don't feel that they're, breaking their bones and damaging the skin. And it's because the nerves are no good and they have no pain. So next time you whack your thumb with a hammer, be grateful that you, that you noticed, because that's a good thing. So let's talk a little bit about how pain works. And how it works is those danged nociceptors, right? the little rascals, and we will talk a little bit about those. The nervous system, of course, permeates every bit of your body, right? And it's got sensory nerves, particularly is what we're talking about, that go all over internally, and they perceive everything about our environment, everything from, you know, the temperature of the air around us, to the pressure on the soles of our feet, to, you know, whether or not we just whacked our thumb with a hammer. All those things are getting reported back to the brain, so that the brain can make decisions about how to proceed. Like if you hit your thumb with a hammer, maybe you ought not to do that again, right? Maybe you could move your thumb or stop swinging the hammer, right? We got lots of options there. But these specialized cells for pain are called nociceptors. And the nociceptors are specialized sensory nerves, and they perceive these potentially damaging events, right? And they're specialized for different types of things. I mean, they're very specialized. Like there's some of them that only perceive cutting, or, you know, getting poked with a needle, or heat, you know, or cold, or you know, stretching. There's all kinds of very specific nociceptors doing very specific jobs, and they tend to be heavily concentrated on the outside of our body, which makes sense, right? So we have a lot of them in our skin, and those guys are really good at feeling, you know, cutting and burns and needle pokes and things like that, because we don't want those things to happen to us. The further you get into the body, the fewer of them there are. And you know, like in the abdominal cavity, for example, just as an example, you know, there's no nociceptors for cutting or for, you know, fire or heat or anything like that. You know, the only really significant nociceptors in the internal viscera, for example, are stretch receptors, right? So that you know that your belly is too full, or that you're, you know, having a baby or something like that. You know, those kinds of stretch receptors causing pain. So I have, like, for example, when I'm doing surgery on a cow, I'll get some lidocaine and I'll numb up the skin and the muscles that I'm going to cut through, and that's all I have to do. You know, I don't have to do general anesthesia on a cow to knock her out and do a C-section. Once I've got those superficial nerves happy and sleeping, then
when you need a break, I can fix the sound issue on your computer.
Then we can go inside and do whatever we want, right? For example, I open her up with a scalpel, and then I go in. I can make an incision in her uterus. She doesn't feel that. I can sew up an incision in her uterus or her stomach or whatever. They don't feel it, right? There is an interesting neural loop that I don't quite understand, that the stretch receptors in the viscera of a cow, if you stretch them, it sends a signal through their back leg and into my knee, which causes pain. And so that was interesting. I'm not sure how that works, but every time I would stretch something inside the cow, she'd kick the bejeebers out of my leg. So that's a whole different pathway. But anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the herbal actions of interest, and before we do that, Evan wants to look at something here and fix something quick so that my lips and my sound go at the same time. So you want to come click something, Evan?
Yeah. All right, we'll try that.
Okay.
We'll see if that works. I don't know if it will. Oops.
All right. So is that any different for you, Evan? I'm saying things and I'm wondering if my lips are moving while I say them. All right, are we ready to get going?
All right. That's as good as it's going to get, I think. We'll have to do some hardware stuff later.
Okay, we'll do hardware stuff later. All right. Can you come back and make the little picture show what I'm looking at over here? Because I don't know what I'm looking at. We will be starting a new school, the Homegrown Herbalist School of Ventriloquism, so that you can also learn how to make words come out of your mouth when your mouth isn't moving. But that's sometime in the future. We're not really ready to launch that yet. But all right, we're looking at actions of interest, herbal actions of interest for relieving pain. Okay, and there's a lot of them. We're not going to talk about all of them because we don't want to keep those guys in New York up all night. But we will. And by the way, if you fall asleep in New York, we'll put this on YouTube, and you can finish it later. Anyway, there's a number of different mechanisms that we can use for dealing with pain, and understanding the mechanisms, understanding what the herbs are doing, understanding what the body is doing, can help you, understand how to approach the problem, right? Also, it's very beneficial, and my kind of standard operating procedure is to use more than one mechanism to solve the problem, right? So we get sort of a synergy of effects. So let's talk a little bit about some of these options that we have. So these are actions that the herbs have, okay? Categories of herbal actions, I guess, is the best way to talk about it. So the first group of herbs are the anodynes, all right? And anodynes are herbs that stop pain topically when they're applied topically to mucous membranes, okay? So these won't work on your skin, but they work great in your mouth, and that's where they're usually used. They typically are very useful for like dental pain or for mouth sores, canker sores, things like that. Really good for that sort of thing. And the two most common that I most commonly use are cloves and yarrow root, right? And so those are both good for that kind of an operation, for numbing up the mucous membranes for dental pain. They used to use cloves. That was kind of the thing they did as dentists. In fact, I have a Canadian veterinary technician, and she can't stand the smell of cloves because they remind her of the dentist, So it wasn't too long ago that was still the way to do things. All right. The next group we'll talk about are demulcent herbs. And a demulcent is a plant that contains high levels of a material called mucilage, right? And mucilage, of course, is the Greek word for plant snot, right? Mucilage is, I don't know if that's really true. I don't speak Greek, but probably. Anyway, mucilage is that slimy, slippery, wonderful stuff that you find in plants like slippery elm and marshmallow and mallow and hollyhock and comfrey. All have lots of mucilage. And mucilage is really soothing to the mucous membranes, okay? So what's a mucous membrane? Well, the mucous membranes are the lining of your body everywhere on the inside, okay? So whether that's your mouth, your throat, your gastrointestinal tract, your bladder, your lungs, the inside of everything is a mucous membrane. And so, and this material, this mucilage, doesn't have to be in direct contact with those tissues, right? So you can, it makes sense that you would drink some marshmallow and it would make your sore throat feel better. But it'll also make your bladder inflammation feel better. It'll also make your inflamed, grumpy bronchi when you have a cough feel better, okay? So it's not just a local effect. So, you know, the most common, well-known plant for this is marshmallow, probably, and slippery elm. I don't ever use slippery elm. And the reason I don't use it isn't because it doesn't work. It's a great plant. It's because it's really almost endangered. The slippery elm trees, between the Dutch elm disease and the herbalists, we've kind of got that tree on the ropes. And so I don't use much slippery elm. But the good news is you can use any other elm you want. You know, so those Chinese elms that are springing up in your backyard that you've been saying bad things to all these years, you need to start making up with those guys. And it's the inner bark of that slippery elm, of that elm, Chinese elm, any elm, that does the trick. Or marshmallow, or mallow, which is a really common lawn weed. That one's in the book. Or hollyhock. They're all cousins. Okay, and so the root is going to be the strongest source of that mucilage. The leaf has some too, but the root's going to be better. In fact, even the seeds on slippery elm, in the spring, the seeds come out even before the leaves do. And if I'm getting a scratchy throat or something in the spring, I'll go out to the elm tree. I got one growing right outside my front door, and grab a handful of those green seeds and chew on them, and you can just feel that wonderful slippery mucilage, and it makes your throat feel better and is very soothing. I was on a conference once, so it was like a 3 or 4 day thing, and I was lecturing during the day, and I had a booth all day, and I was giving workshops every night for 3 or 4 hours. And by the third day, I couldn't talk at all. And I was driving out of the hotel, and I saw an elm tree, and I jumped out of the car and grabbed a branch and cut it off, and it, you know, was full of seeds, and I just ate those seeds all day, and it saved my life. I mean, it really made it so that I could function and talk and do my tricks. So really did the trick for me. So anyway, demulcent herbs, very soothing. They're good for pain. They're also good for, you know, soothing all those other things we talked about, you know, gastric upset, intestinal trouble, diarrhea, bladder inflammation, respiratory inflammation, all that stuff. All right. Okay, let's talk about nervines. This is another category of herbs that I use a lot for pain. So these are pain herbs that actually sedate or calm the nerves. All right. And so, you know, sleeping nerves don't hurt. And so we can knock those rascals out and make things feel better. And there's a lot of them, and they're very effective. A couple of my favorites are valerian, root, or skullcap. And with skullcap, it's the leaf. Well, anything growing above the ground. The aerial parts is what we call that. But both of these are great plants for pain. And they're also typically, because your brain is made out of nerves too, they're also very calming. Some are sort of sedating, you know, so they'll, you know, you can use them for insomnia and for anxiety and for panic attacks and things like that as well. And they're very effective. But they're really good for pain. And so that's one of the things we like a lot. And we're going to talk more about some of these things in a little more detail in a little bit here. But nervines. All right. Who's next? Oh, antispasmodics. Okay, so what the heck's an antispasmodic? Well, what's a spasm, right? A spasm, a muscle contracture that you don't like. A lot of times, you know, we get an injury, you know, like you tweak your back a little bit, and your body's response is to immobilize your back, right? So you get all these muscle spasms and contractions, which are actually more painful than the initial insult, right? And so, you know, your body, I mean, the theory, it works good on paper, right? The body's saying, oh, you know, when he moved that, it really hurt. Don't let him ever move again, you know, and they all contract and stabilize. It's like making a splint, you know, for your back. So they mean well, but, you know, the muscle spasms themselves are very painful sometimes. And sometimes just getting that to go away is all you need, right? And so these antispasmodic herbs are good for that. They're good for other spasm issues too. And what would that be? Well, sometimes if you have a really bad, annoying cough, you can take antispasmodics and it'll relax the muscles in your airway and calm things down. You can use them for asthma to open up your airways, because that's a muscle spasm too, right? You can use them for diarrhea. That's a muscle spasm, right? Your guts are getting all wound up and contracting too much, and so stuff doesn't stay in there long enough. That's why you get diarrhea. So these antispasmodics have a lot of uses, but for pain, we're basically relaxing skeletal muscle, like, you know, the muscles in your back and your arms and your legs or whatever. But you can also use it for smooth muscle, right? You could use it for uterine cramps, you know. Some of them are safe to use for preterm labor, even. Cramp bark is. A lot of them you should not take if you're pregnant. But cramp bark is an exception, and cramp bark, of course, is just the snowball bush. You know, if you live in Idaho or Utah, you probably got one of these in your front yard, and if you don't, your neighbor does, so make friends with him. And it's the bark is the medicine, the inner bark. But these are big, vigorous bushes, and they need pruning, and so you go out in the spring before it flowers, you thin out the canes you don't want, and then strip the bark off of those, and that's your medicine for the year for cramp bark. Lobelia is another really fantastic antispasmodic, very, very good for muscle spasms, but also for all the other stuff we talked about, asthma, all those things. I have a rib that pops out once in a while, and I immediately get all these horrible back spasms trying to get my back to hold still because it hurts if I move, right? They're trying to help. And if I take a little lobelia, it'll loosen up all those muscles, and 9 times out of 10 I can wheel that thing back in. So that's how the antispasmodics work. So that's very beneficial for pain cases. There's also osmotic herbs, right? Now, what the heck is osmosis? If you remember from 9th grade biology, osmosis is when a more concentrated fluid pulls water from a less concentrated fluid, right? And so basically these plants are very salty. It's not salt, but they're very concentrated, and they're pulling fluid out of wounds. That's why we use them on burns. Okay, the principal cause of pain in a burn is the swelling, the tissue fluid edema in the tissue is what hurts. So you put the osmotic herbs on there, and it pulls that fluid out, and now they don't, now it doesn't hurt as much. And most of these kids have some antibacterial and anti-inflammatory properties too, which are good and help. But they're very useful for burns, or for any wound, really. The most common one you hear about all the time is aloe vera. And aloe vera, all of these plants, it's the gel inside that's the medicine. And so, you take the aloe vera leaf and you cut it open and you scrape out the gel and slap it on your burn, and it feels better. But you can do the same thing with hens and chicks. You can do the same thing with purslane, which is a very common weed. I think purslane's grown in every sidewalk crack in the state of Idaho. And it's a succulent, just like aloe vera is, so it's got thick, little, shiny, fat leaves and these characteristic red stems. And you can use that topically on a burn. Now, you're obviously not going to fillet that leaf like you would an aloe vera leaf because they're just little guys. But you just take the whole plant and grind it up in a blender or in your mortar and pestle, or I don't know how traditional you want to be, but you make a mush out of it and put it on your burn. Same thing with the hens and chicks. And the nice thing about hens and chicks is that the genus for that plant is sempervivum, always alive. You can go out Christmas morning and dig in the snowbank and find hens and chicks, right? And they'll look just like they look on 4th of July. They look just the same. And so you take them in and you get that gel and put it on your burn, and that's a nice one to have. Prickly pear cactus is good too for burns. The same thing, same reason. So you just slice that cactus leaf open, slap it on your burn, and that'll make it feel better. It is very important with the prickly pear to get the correct side down, on the burn. Otherwise, it's not as effective for some reason. But you'll know right away if you do it wrong. Anyway, those are the osmotic herbs, all right? And like I say, there's other categories. There's anti-inflammatory herbs. Antibiotic herbs can help with pain. Lymphatic herbs, we could talk about this till midnight. But I just wanted to give you sort of a feel for some of the categories, and we'll touch on some of the others sort of as we go along. But let's talk for just a second about some options, some different kinds of pain, all right? So if we understand the principles that's causing the pain, and we understand what the plants are doing, Well, now we really have some information, right? Now we can take action and we can get after things and formulate a solution for that pain. So let's talk about back pain, all right? So how do you get back pain? Well, you pick something up that's too heavy, right? Or you tweak something. It can be a pinched nerve. It can be a muscle that gets hyperextended. It can be a joint, right, that gets in your back that gets hyperextended or tweaked a little bit. And so your back's response to that, like we said, is going to be muscle spasms, right? To immobilize that so you don't move it anymore, because moving that was dumb, right? We don't want to do that. And so we can use antispasmodic herbs like cramp bark, like lobelia, to relax the spasms. And then we can use anti-inflammatory herbs that decrease inflammation, like willow bark is a good one for that, or meadowsweet. And we can also use nervines, right? Like the valerian, like the skullcap, chamomile, another good one. And so you can use those internally, but the nervines and the antispasmodics particularly, you can also use topically, which is very cool. And so, we have a formula called PaneAway, brain and nerve PaneAway, that's what it's called. And of course that we spell that PaneAway, because we wouldn't want to be making any non-FDA approved claims about anything. But if you get the tincture and you take it internally, so that formula has antispasmodics in it, like cramp bark, right, and lobelia, and it also has some nervines in it, like valerian and skullcap. And so you can take that internally and it'll help the pain, but you can also spray that tincture right on your back, and it'll soak in. The alcohol base of the tincture is very penetrating, and it'll soak in and numb things up and relax those muscles, and now it doesn't hurt. Okay, so that's how you approach one of those deals. Okay, let's talk about dental pain. Okay, so the teeth are anchored in these really tight-fitting sockets. Okay, so that's great for not having your teeth wobble around, because you don't want your teeth wobbling around. But the bad news is that there's really nowhere for inflammation and swelling to go, right? We're in this bony socket, and if anything swells up at all, it hurts, right? And so that's bad. That's why, tooth pain can be very intense. For the tiny little problem that it is, the pain is pretty intense. And so, as we said, in many cases, those anodyne herbs like cloves tincture or yarrow root can be really effective for numbing those nerves up and making things feel better. My wife, who by the way got a haircut today, and it is adorable, so cute today. Anyway, she is a Idaho farm girl, and she's tough, right? And she went into the dentist to get something done to a tooth years ago. I don't even remember what it was, but it was a big deal. And, he numbed her up, obviously, and then did whatever he was going to do. And she came home, and that Novocaine wore off, and wow, I thought she was going to die. I mean, she was in so much pain. And I called the dentist. He's a buddy of mine. I says, hey, we got trouble here because the toughest lady I know is really in trouble with this tooth pain. And he said, oh, well, give her really a lot of Advil. I don't remember how much, but it was way more Advil than I was going to give anybody I liked. I figured out, well, yeah, I could make the pain go away, and then I could fix the ulcer in her stomach, right? So we didn't do the Advil, and I went out to the herb building, and I grabbed the Cloves Tincture, and I put it on a cotton ball and poked that in her mouth, right? And as long as she had that little cotton ball with the clove tincture on it, it was immediately resolved. I mean, the pain was just gone. And, it wasn't like it was gone and gone forever. We had to keep refreshing that every hour or so. But it got her through that first day without the pain, and by the second day she was all right. So the anodynes are great. Cloves or yarrow root, and you don't have to have a cloves tincture. If you're got a toothache, get the cloves out of your spice drawer and grind them up and mix them with a little water and slap that on your gum. It'll work, okay, in a pinch. So that's one way to do it. The other thing is, a lot of times when we have dental pain, it's because we have infection, right? So we've got swelling because of the infection. Well, we got to deal with that. And so antibiotic herbs like calendula or, Oregon grape, golden seal, guys like that can kill those bugs, and as a result, that's going to decrease the inflammation. That's going to decrease the pain, right? I have a formula that has calendula, echinacea, and cleavers, which is a lymphatic drainer. Okay, so you're killing bugs with the calendula, and it's anti-inflammatory. You're stimulating the immune system with the echinacea, and then the cleavers is helping the circulation and the flow of the lymph and the other stuff that's got to happen to get that inflammation out of there. And that formula is called tooth. What is it called? Tooth Abzez, Abzez or something like that. Just do a search for tooth on homegrownherbalist.net. You can find that, or make your own. But I've had a lot of cases over the years with people that have a bad tooth, and they go to the dentist, and he puts them on an antibiotic, and they feel great for a week or two while they're on the antibiotic, and a week after they quit, they got their bad tooth back, right? Because it's very difficult to get the antibiotics into that tooth root sometimes. And so we've put them on that formula, and they just put the tincture on, or they'll mix it with a little water and swish it around for as long as they can stand it and then swallow it. And more often than not, those cases resolve with that procedure. So we've been very happy with that. So anodynes and antibiotics and anti-inflammatories, and I mean herbal antibiotics, are the way to go for the dental pain. All right, let's talk about your innards a little bit, gastrointestinal pain. So remember we said there aren't any nociceptors in your guts for cutting or tearing or needles or veterinarians or surgeons. You don't need nerves for that. And that was a good idea, right? I mean, I think God figured by the time the lion is eating your innards, maybe there's such a thing as too much information, right? Maybe we don't have to experience all of that. And so you don't need cutting and tearing receptors in your guts. But we do need stretch receptors, okay? And so, because we got to know if we're too full, we got to know if we got, appendicitis, that's from stretching. We got to know if we have gas, in our guts making us painful. And so there's stretch receptors. And so usually with pain in your guts, usually it's from gas accumulation. And so what do we do about that? Well, we can relax the muscles, because what happens is they get mad and they contract, and now we got more pain. And so there are herbs called carminatives, and carminative comes from the same word as carding, like when you card wool, combing, right? It's from the Greek word for combing. And so we're combing your guts, right? We're combing things out of them so that they feel better. And those carminative herbs like fennel and ginger, or almost anything in the mint family, are going to relax the muscles in your gut and relax things so that things can move through and not be so pinched up and grumpy. So those are very effective. So peppermint, chamomile, fennel, ginger, all those guys are great. Also, you can have inflammation in your gut, right? If you have an infection or an irritation in the lining of the gut, that can be irritating. And it's not irritating per se from a nerve sensory standpoint, but it's irritating because it irritates the gut, and now the gut gets irritated and you start having spasms and irritation and inflammation, okay? And so the demulcent herbs like marshmallow, like sliprium, like mallow or hollyhock, or any of those kids are going to be really soothing to the gut, really, really calming and soothing mechanically to those tissues. And that can help. So, okay, we can relax the muscles with antispasmodics and carminatives, right? We can soothe the lining with sliprium, and that'll fix it, right? Most times that'll straighten you out. So those are the three approaches for gut pain. You use the carminatives like fennel and peppermint. You use the nervines like chamomile. You use the antispasmodics like cramp bark or angelica is a very good antispasmodic for the gut. And you use the demulcents like marshmallow or sliprium. Okay, that's the way we deal with gut pain. All right, let's talk about sore brains, right? Brain pain is bad. Actually, there's no such thing as brain pain. You don't have any pain receptors at all in your brain. So if you were getting brain surgery, they could numb up the skin and the skull, and once they're through that, they can puddle around in your brain all they want, and you never feel it. Okay, there's no pain receptors in your brain. So when you have a headache, it's caused by irritation or inflammation of the tissues surrounding the brain. You know, the meninges and all those guys, and the nerves coming and going out of the brain. And there's all kinds of mechanisms that can cause headaches. One of the first things I do, if I have somebody that's getting chronic headaches a lot, and I get people like this in the naturopath practice, one of the things I like to do is have them do a food journal and say, I want you to write down everything that goes in your mouth for a month. And I want you to write down every time you get a headache and how bad it is and what time of day you get it. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes they can find, holy cow, whenever I eat this, you know, a lot of times it's MSG or some kind of a food coloring or some kind of a food they're allergic to. They don't even know it. If I eat that, I get a headache, right? I'm allergic to onions, and I always got a horrible headache whenever we had a picnic when I was a kid. And I also got a horrible headache whenever I ate at Burger King. And it was many, many years before I figured out that it was the raw onions in my mom's potato salad, the raw onions on my Whopper that were giving me this horrible headache. And so, you know, I figured it out. But anyway, there are herbs that are, you know, analgesic, pain-killing herbs that can be very effective. Willow bark is one. Spirea is one. Spirea is meadowsweet, right? In fact, the word aspirin comes from a spirea, out of spirea. That's where aspirin came from. It's got salicylic acid in it, which is what aspirin's made out of. And any of the other trees in that willow family, the cottonwood, the poplar, the birch, the aspen, all of those guys, the young green bark on the young twigs, or the inner bark is aspirin basically on a stick. Okay, so that works. Also, sometimes these headaches are from spasms, right? And so we can use antispasmodics with good effect. So we can use the analgesic herbs like willow bark or spirea. We can use an antispasmodic. Sometimes we can use, some headaches respond to nervines like valerian or chamomile or skullcap or those kind of guys. Sometimes those are effective. Some people get migraines, and migraines are often responsive to feverfew. Sometimes they're responsive to clematis, wild clematis, rosemary, lemon balm. I'll tell you, I had an interesting experience. I had a lady come, this was years and years ago, but she came to one of my lectures. I was doing a lecture at this convention, and she walked into the lecture. There was a little door right by where I was standing lecturing, and she walked in that door and immediately realized I was not the guy she came to listen to. But she's up in the front and she's embarrassed, so she just sat down on the front row, right? And I'm watching her, and I can just see that she's just, you know, how long can this guy talk about herbs, you know? But anyway, she was a good sport and sat there. And afterwards, she came up to me. She says, "Do you have anything for migraines?" And I said, "Yeah, try some fever." No, don't do that. Try some clematis. No, don't do the clematis. Try some, and I went through like 4 or 5 or 6 of my go-to, you know, migraine herbs, and it just nothing. I couldn't get anything out. It just didn't feel right. And finally, I said, "Get some lemon balm. Go down to the booth, and my guy's down there. He'll sell you a bottle of lemon balm tincture. Try that." Okay. Now, I had never in my life used lemon balm for a migraine. Wasn't on my list at all. Wasn't on my radar. Okay, I just knew and felt like that was what it was supposed to be, right? Which is weird. But that's a whole nother lecture, right? That's the lecture about listening to the little voice in your head because he's really smart, and you live in your life so that you can be in tune with that little voice is a good idea. But anyway, somebody wanted to help this little lady, and I told her to get some lemon balm, and I never thought about it again. Well, about a year ago, I was down in Ogden, and this lady comes up to me at my booth, and she says, "You don't remember me?" And I said, "I don't." She said, "I talked to you about 5 years ago in Orem, and I had migraines, and you told me to take lemon balm." And I said, oh yeah, I actually do remember that, because it was such a weird experience, because I didn't tell people to take lemon balm for headaches. And I said, well, so how you doing? And she says, well, I got to tell you, I spent my whole life having 2 or 3 really horrific migraines a week, where I would be curled up in the fetal position on my bed all day with this, wishing I could die from this migraine. And I finally found a pill that I could take that about 75% of the time would fix the migraine. And the pill was $75 a pill, right? And I guess that's how they price things in the pharmaceutical industry. If it worked 100% of the time, it would have been $100 a pill. But anyway, it was only 75% of the time, so it was only $75 a pill. But anyway, she would take those pills, and 3 out of 4 times she'd feel better. But anyway, she says, I went home and I went to bed that night, and I got up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom or something, and I saw that little lemon balm on the sink, that bottle you sold me, and I tried some. I squirted some in, and I woke up the next morning and I didn't have a migraine. She always had them in the morning. She woke up with them. And I said, okay, well, that's good. I mean, I don't know. I mean, sometimes I wake up and I don't have a migraine. And so I took some the next night, and I woke up and I didn't have a migraine. And she said, I did that for a week, and I didn't have a migraine for a week. And I thought, oh, that's different. And I took it for a month, and I didn't have one for a month. And she said, wow. And she didn't want to tell anybody because she didn't want to jinx it, right? But she said that she has scarcely had a migraine at all for 5 years since she started taking that lemon balm. Okay, so, I mean, what an amazing thing. That one plant, one super easy to grow, silly mint family plant that you can't hardly get rid of if you plant it in your yard, would save her life like that, right? And so, these plants are really remarkable. I just love them, and I just love working with them and having these kinds of experiences with them. And, a lot of times we can find a solution. Maybe it's not the antispasmodics or the analgesics or the, maybe it's lemon balm, And so anyway, that's now something I recommend a lot for migraines, and other people have benefited from that too. Rosemary is also good. Basil's pretty good. A lot of the mints do things to your brain, that make it not hurt so much. So, all right, enough about sore brains. Let's talk about sore hips. So, arthritis is inflammation of the joints, right? And, it's an inflammation, and so we're going to want to use anti-inflammatory herbs. And that's a whole other category we didn't talk about because we didn't want to be here all night. But there are some herbs that are really good anti-inflammatories. Yucca root is one of them. Turmeric is one of them. Boswellia, which is frankincense, is one of them. And in fact, turmeric and boswellia have a synergistic effect. It's sort of a 1 + 1 = 3 kind of effect that make the inflammation, the anti-inflammatory properties really good. And if you add a little black pepper to that, you get 1 + 1 = 4, because the black pepper helps the turmeric get absorbed. Turmeric absorption is not great. The liver tends to kick that stuff out. But if you put a little black pepper with it, I don't know if she's cuter or what the deal is, but the liver enzymes go flirt with her, and the turmeric can sneak right past and get in and do his thing. And so if you want to improve turmeric absorption, and it's not just a little, it's like, I think I read 6,000% or something better absorption of turmeric if you take black pepper with it. So boswellia, turmeric, a little black pepper, some yucca, those kinds of anti-inflammatories can have a significant effect on decreasing the pain and the inflammation from arthritis. The other thing, interestingly, that works really well for arthritis is diuretics. Well, what the heck's a diuretic? A diuretic's an herb that makes you pee more. Why does that make your hip quit hurting? Well, because if you're peeing more and getting rid of toxins through your liver, through your kidneys, also hepatic herbs help with this too. Anyway, if you're getting rid of the toxins by taking a herb like burdock, right? You can take burdock and make your hip quit hurting. Well, how come? Because it doesn't have any anti-inflammatory properties, but it makes your liver happy and it makes your kidneys happy. Okay, so they start eliminating the toxins they're supposed to eliminate, and as a result, those toxins don't precipitate into your joints and cause inflammation, right? So it's a consequence of the herb, not a direct action, but it really helps. And so, in our joint formula, if you go to homegrownherbalist.net and look at the joint formula and read the ingredients, burdock is one of those ingredients for that reason, because it helps get rid of those metabolic wastes. So that's how I deal with arthritis. I use anti-inflammatories and I use diuretics. You could also, if you wanted, depending on where the arthritis is, you can do some of that work topically too. If you have arthritis in your hands, you can put some of those things on your hands, and it's close enough to the joints to soak in. Might be a little bit harder to do that on your hip, but you can use tinctures and spray them on your hands or on your sore joints and elbows and wrists and things, and get a lot of relief that way from the other guys, the nervines, right? And so again, that brain and nerve PaneAway is a good one for that topically. And you can take it internally too. The nervines will make it quit hurting internally too. But usually it's the anti-inflammatories and the diuretics that I'm focusing on. Another way to get rid of joint pain is to use arnica liniment topically. And arnica is deadly poison internally, so don't take it internally. But topically, it's very soothing to pain, and its principal functions are to improve circulation. It's very warming, and it also relaxes the muscles. Okay, and so if you have joint pain that if you rubbed it and warmed it up, it would feel better, arnica is your guy. Okay, so you can make an arnica liniment. Just get some arnica flowers and poke them in a jar and cover them with rubbing alcohol, and in 2 weeks you got a liniment. Okay, and rub that on your joints. The other thing that can help joint pain is a category of herbs called rubefacients. So what the heck does that mean? Well, those are guys that warm you up. Okay, so cayenne and ginger, hot stuff. Okay, if you make a lotion with cayenne or ginger and you put that on your joints, that improves circulation and gets stuff moving, just like the burdock did. Right, we're just going to move stuff out of there so it's not causing inflammation. Cayenne also has a chemical in it that impacts substance P, which sort of puts your nerves to sleep. So it actually helps your nerves that way with the pain. The other thing that people do that's funny and sort of counterintuitive is they'll sting themselves to fix their pain. Well, how does that work? So they do it with bees, some people, and some people do it with stinging nettle. So you can stick your hand in a patch of stinging nettle and get stung, and after a few minutes of the initial enthusiasm of reporting to you that you've been stung by stinging nettle, the joint pain will actually decrease. And it's not just a temporary thing. I mean, it's for days and days sometimes that your joints feel lots better. And so it's worth it to some people to do that stinging nettle. The stinging nettle, improves blood flow. Probably the histamine effect is having some response to that with interfering with pain mediators and numbing the nerves and stuff. We don't really know exactly what it is, but it works. It's called urtication, right? Stinging yourself on purpose to fix your joints is called urtication, because urtica is the genus of stinging nettle. That's where they got that word. But anyway, that's a fun, weird way you can fix pain. All right. Let's talk about menstrual pain and cramping. This is miserable for some people. Some women really suffer a lot for a couple of days every 30 days or so, and it's awful. So there's two classes of herbs that we use for this. One is, first of all, before we talk about herbs, let's talk about magnesium, okay? Because a lot of times, if you increase magnesium intake, you can decrease cramping pain, okay? Because what happens is your muscles, when they contract, it's like they have little ratchets, little hooks, and they grab each other, right? And you have to have calcium and magnesium to let go. That's the chemical that tells them to let go and relax again. Well, if you don't have enough magnesium, they just get tighter and tighter and tighter, and there's no relief, right? And so what is very effective for some people is to increase magnesium intake by taking a lot of magnesium, right? And you can buy magnesium at the store. Anywhere they sell vitamins and stuff, you can buy magnesium. But make sure you get the right kind. If you get magnesium oxide, which is the kind that's almost always for sale, don't waste your money. That's not going to help you. What you want is either magnesium citrate, with a C, C-I-T-R-A-T-E, magnesium citrate, or magnesium glycinate. Okay, those two have vastly better absorption than magnesium oxide. And so take the magnesium, take a lot of it. And magnesium is kind of a laxative. And so what I tell people is take that and keep increasing the dose every day until your stools get a little looser than you're comfortable with, and then back off just a little, and that's where you want to be. Okay? And a lot of people, that does the trick for them. So that's good. And then herbally, there's two ways that we can help. One is with the antispasmodic herbs, right? Like cramp bark or lobelia, guys like that relax muscles, tell those muscles to not be so grumpy. The other group of herbs is a category we didn't mention, is the amenagogues. And those are herbs that hormonally influence, that cycle and the cramping. And so they can be effective. Black cohosh is one of those plants. Angelica is one of those plants. Yarrow is one of those plants. And so they are having an impact hormonally to decrease what's out of whack so that the uterus doesn't cramp and be so grumpy. So also herbs that have a warming circulatory impact, like fennel, can be really good. Ginger sometimes can be helpful. And so, those are the things you can think about. So you can directly stop the cramping with by giving the body what it needs, which is magnesium. You can directly stop the cramping by using an antispasmodic. You can stop the cramping with hormone manipulation with herbs like black cohosh or angelica, both of which, incidentally, are also great antispasmodics. Wasn't that clever of God to do, right? Or you can use warming, circulatory improvers like fennel and ginger. So, or a combination of those. I would use a combination, right? All right. Let's talk about muscle pain. And again, we can get back to the arnica liniment. That's really great. And principally, it's antispasmodics. Usually muscle pain is muscle spasms. So antispasmodics are going to work. Or again, you can spray some nervines on there or take them internally and knock the nerves out. That helps. But usually an antispasmodic will fix you. Sometimes you can have an infection. You can have a virus or something that makes you achy, right? And so you would want to use an anti-inflammatory herb for that, like yucca, like turmeric and boswellia, those kinds of things, to just decrease the inflammation a little bit. Calendula, pretty good anti-inflammatory. Gumweed's a pretty good anti-inflammatory. Also, like I said, the antispasmodics, black cohosh, lobelia, cramp bark, all those guys are good. Okay, sometimes pain really is from a nerve, right? And so, and this can be a big deal. This can be very intense. And so you can use the nervines, obviously. If the muscles get involved and start spasming, we're kind of beating the same drum here a little bit, but it's a lot of it's the same story. The nerve gets pinched, the muscles freak out and cramp, so we're going to give them an antispasmodic to relax that. But then we can use nervines to calm the nerves, right? And you can also use anti-inflammatories like willow or like turmeric and boswellia and all those other guys to fix the nerve stuff. A lot of times you just need to move something, right? And so we get into, that's what chiropractics are making a living doing, right? They're unpinching your pinched nerve. I use naprapathy, which is a different modality, which is really good for freeing up nerves that are pinched and grumpy. And so those kinds of physical manipulations sometimes can help. Okay. What else we got? Stings. Oh, stings are no fun, right? So you got bee stings, you got stinging nettle stings. Sometimes you don't want to get stung with stinging nettle, right? Maybe you don't have achy joints and you just as soon not get stung by the stinging nettle. The good news is that the same plants that fix the bee stings and the wasp stings will all fix the stinging nettle and the poison ivy and those guys. Some of the really good ones for that topically. So what you're going to do is take those leaves, grind them up, chew them up, make a spit poultice even, put it on that sting and it'll take it away. So the plants I like for that are plantain, and that's plantain the weed, plantago, not the banana. Yellow dock is good, and teasel leaf is good, okay? And any of those three, and they're always growing right next to the stinging nettle, you know, because they know some dumb guy's going to come along and get stung, right? So they're there to help. So that's what you do for that. I actually discovered the teasel by accident. I was doing some wild crafting. Wild crafting, of course, is the herbalist word for pulling weeds. But we were out harvesting herbs in the boondocks, and I saw this little plant. It's just a little bitty guy. And I'm looking at it, and I'm trying to figure out what it is. It looks sort of like catnip or some kind of a weird mint that I couldn't really identify for sure because it didn't look quite right. And so I bent down to grab a leaf so I could smell it or taste it and see what the heck it was. And it was stinging nettle. And it stung the bejeebers out of me. It was, you know, there's this little guy that was growing way up high on the dry dirt, way up high on the bank. All of his buddies were 5 feet tall down by the river like they were supposed to be because they'd been getting a drink every day. And this little guy hadn't had a drink for 6 months, and he was mad. And boy, I got stung. And so I'm looking for plantain, and I'm looking for yellow dock, and I'm looking for things to fix that sting. And there isn't anything there because they're all down there by the stinging nettle where they belong, right? But I saw this little teasel plant, this little first-year teasel, and it was just like he was waving his arms, oh, pick me, I know this one, right? And I had a little chat, and I told him that I didn't really think teasel was any good for this, but he was very insistent, and so I took some leaves, and I chewed them up, and I put them on the sting, and boom, gone. Okay? So teasel works, too. So again, listen to the little voices. I tell people there's 3 voices you got to listen to, okay? If you're going to be an herbalist, 3 voices. First of all, you listen to the voice of your own body. You know, if you're craving something, if something is not chocolate, all right, not mashed potatoes, but if you're craving an herb, that's probably one you ought to be taking. If you have a bad feeling about an herb, if it tastes yucky or looks yucky or smells yucky, you don't take that one, right? Listen to your body. So listen to the voice of your own body. Listen to the plants, because they know stuff. And listen to the God that made the plants, because he knows stuff, right? And if you listen to those 3 and live your life so that you're in tune to that, you'll learn stuff. It'll be really great. So, all right. What's next? Burns. We talked a little about this already. So basically, principally, we're going to do the osmotic herbs, right? The aloe vera, the prickly pear cactus, the purslane, the hens and chicks, right? Get that gel, put it on the burn. That'll help a lot topically. And then you can do all the internal stuff too. You can take some nervines, you can take some anti-inflammatories internally. But mostly topically, if you deal with that, you'll be great. That'll help that burn. Okay. What about wounds? What if you get a bad owie on your finger like this poor guy? Well, what are you going to do? Well, the demulcent herbs like marshmallow are very effective, slippery elm, very soothing, right? Really help those tissues feel better about everything. And then you can use anti-inflammatory herbs like gumweed or calendula topically. I'm talking about topically on the wound. And that helps. And the gumweed and calendula are also good antibiotics. And they also accelerate healing, both of those, like comfrey does. So that's a win-win-win, right? You're going to soothe it with the anti-inflammatory, you're going to accelerate healing, and you're going to kill the bugs. Now, what else do you want on a cut, right? So that's good. So demulcents and anti-inflammatories topically are great for owies. And I've done a ton of wound work over the years, and they really do help. Those guys help. Comfrey, too. Did I mention comfrey? Comfrey's got a lot of mucilage in it. It probably has more mucilage than the guys that we use for mucilage, the slippery elm and the marshmallow. Comfrey's got tons of mucilage in it. So put that on your bad owie, and that'll straighten you out. It'll also make it heal faster, right? Comfrey accelerates healing a lot. And so use that. All right. Well, there's sort of a pain management in a nutshell for you. Appreciate you listening. We do have a full program if you're interested. We do have the Homegrown Herbalist School of Botanical Medicine, and that program can be completely completed online. Although we do have local hands-on events all over the Western United States for, wound management workshops and plant walks and medicine making workshops and all kinds of fun stuff. But we record those, and they're also on the internet for the school. But if you would be interested in that, go to homegrownherbalist.net and have a look at the school. I think you'd enjoy it. The price is ridiculously fair, way more than fair, because I would rather make 10 herbalists than one herbalist for the same money. That's why. So that's our mission. And so have a look at that. We have a lot of formulas for pain. You can have a look at those if that's helpful, if you don't want to make your own, on the website homegrownherbalist.net. And we have the winners of the 2 books. So we are going to send a book to Laura Bergeson and to Mary Linda Biddle. So if you're listening still, Laura, and you haven't dozed off, Mary, you'll have to send me an email because I don't know your address, right? we didn't think about that. But yeah, send me an email to doc@homegrownherbalist.net and I'll send you a book. And if you didn't win the book, I know a great place where you can buy one. Go to homegrownherbalist.net and pick one of those up. They're fun. Okay, so we are got a few minutes here. If you want, we can answer some questions. If anybody's got questions, we'll see if we know anything and can help you out. So just go ahead and type them into the whatever it is, that chat box thing on the bottom of the YouTube channel. I don't know what they're called. And we'll see if we can help you. I want to thank Evan, my son, tonight for being our IT computer genius guy. He does tremendous work for us, and we're grateful. He does a really good job. So also, by the way, if you wanted a PDF of the slides, shoot an email to me at info@homegrownherbalist.net, and we'll get you squared away with the PDF. info@homegrownherbalist.net. We'll send you that PDF. Let me just look through here and see if anybody asked any questions. We got a lot of people on here tonight. But let's look here. Oh, Joseph Waters is an online student from Atlantic City. I used to live in Linwood, New Jersey, right across the bay from you. I used to work I was a busboy in Atlantic City at Abe's Oyster House. So I don't know if they're still selling oysters at Abe's Oyster House, but I used to work there when I was a kid. Great people. All right. Boy, lots of people shared this. We sure appreciate it. And when you do that sharing and you do the liking and the subscribing and stuff, that just really helps us get the word out and get the message. Because really what we're all about is trying to help people get more information about these herbs. So remember, if you want the PDF, send me an email, info@homegrownherbalist.net, and then we'll get you those PDFs. All right. Oh, is that a question? Okay, here, Laura Bergeson asks, how would one deal with post-surgical pain? Okay. Well, so first of all, let me tell you, if you're going to have surgery, don't take any herbs for a week or two before you have surgery. Okay, that's a really good idea, because herbs interact with anesthetics sometimes, and they can also, some of them make your blood not clot as well, and so you don't want to be taking herbs, the day you go into surgery. But after surgery, you can do all the things we talked about. You can take nervines for the pain. You can take anti-inflammatories for the pain. You could put tinctures on topically near the incision, not on the incision, because if you put a tincture on the incision, you'll scream like a little girl, right? Because alcohol is owie on an incision. But if you put it next to and near, it'll still soak in and help with that. You could use, valerian or skullcap topically like that. You could also use comfrey to help it heal, to accelerate the healing, right? So that's good. All right, let's see. Any other questions? Yeah, somebody says they got a daughter with migraines. Try that lemon balm, boy, that sometimes really helps. Oh, look here, Reverend Ryan Calderon says lemon balm has helped him a lot for his migraines. Good, I'm glad. Lemon balm also, by the way, speaking of lemon balm, is very nice for, as like a bedtime tea, right? It's calming and sedating a little bit, so you can take that to help you go to sleep at night. The other thing is that lemon balm kills the herpes virus on contact. So if you get a cold sore, if you're getting a cold sore, you can put lemon balm, you can make a lotion and put that lemon balm lotion on the cold sore, or just put the tincture is the best way to do it. As soon as you start thinking you're getting a cold sore, put that lemon balm tincture on there and keep it on and keep going for a day or two, and you'll kill that thing, and it won't make, or if it does, it won't be as big for as long. Also, you can, if you want to, you can just take the leaves and grind up the leaf of the lemon balm and wad them up and put them on your lip, and then put a piece of tape on there, right? And that'll fix it. It's also wonderful birth control, right? If you come home, honey, hi honey, I'm home, right? So lemon balm, the plant's the medicine. Use that. Nicole says, I can't do lemon balm for my headaches because it messes with my hypothyroid. That's true. Lemon balm will suppress thyroid hormone a little bit. If you don't have low thyroid already, it doesn't matter. It won't bother you at all. If you have low thyroid already and you're taking thyroid pills, it doesn't matter. It probably won't matter. But if you have low thyroid and you're trying not to take pills, I probably wouldn't take lemon balm long term. Now, if I just had a headache, I'd probably take it, just one time. Or if I wanted to go to sleep one night, but I wouldn't take it every day long term if I had a low thyroid issue already. Bugleweed, motherwort, there's some other kids that do that too. Let's see. Oh, Gypsy says that cloves helped her migraines. There you go. That's fun. See, I always learn something cool from you guys. Basil works well too, that's true. Basil, I think I mentioned basil. Basil, rosemary, lemon balm, all those guys are mints, and they have similar properties, and they work good for headaches. Katrina says, teasel with a question mark. What the heck is teasel? Teasel, the genus is Dipsacus. Just Google teasel. You'll see pictures of it, and you'll say, holy cow, that's growing in my ditch bank. It's a very, very common plant. And teasel's good for nerve pain. We didn't talk about teasel. Did we talk about teasel? Oh, yeah, we talked about it for the stinging nettle. Teasel, let me tell you about teasel. So teasel's a super common plant. They used to use it for carding wool. That's why they call it teasel. They teased the wool. They teased the fibers of the wool to get the sticks out and stuff, right? But teasel, in fact, teasel's in the book, and I've got a cool picture. You won't be able to see it probably, but maybe you can. I don't know if I can find teasel in my dumb book. It's too small. But there's a little picture in here of an old wool carding machine made out of teasel that's in a museum in England. But anyway, the teasel's a cool herb. Teasel is very good for some kinds of nerve pain. And that was another sort of an unusual experience. I was driving down a road and there was teasel growing in the ditch bank, and I was with a plant scientist, right? A botanist, horticulturist or something. I don't know. He's got some kind of a college degree in plant stuff. And we're driving down the road, and I saw this plant in the ditch bank. I says, holy cow, what is that plant? I had this intense, man, you got to know this guy, feeling about this plant. I says, what is that? And he says, I don't know what that is. And I told him he should go back to the college and get his money back, right? Because I thought, boy, for that kind of money, you ought to know what the plants are, right? Anyway, a couple of weeks later, I was at the house of a good friend, Steve, and I saw it again. I had that same experience. And I said, what is that? And he said, it's teasel. And I said, well, what's it good for? And he says, well, I don't know that it's good for anything. And I says, no, it's really good for something. And I actually dug up some roots that day and started a tincture. And while the tincture was percolating for a couple of weeks, I got out my old dusty herb books, and I got on the interweb and started snooping around about teasel. And it was used historically for nerve pain and for Lyme's disease, which they still use it for a lot. But it's sort of an unfashionable herb. The Lyme's thing has sort of made it popular again, but people haven't been really using it. But anyway, so I thought, well, that's weird. I don't know anybody with Lyme's disease now. I don't even know anybody with weird nerve pain. What's up with the teasel? So 2 weeks later, I'm pressing the tincture. I mean, I was literally pressing the tincture. A lady walks into my office and says, Doc, have you got anything? I have the worst nerve pain. I was in an accident years ago, and I have all this nerve entrapment and scar tissue in my back, and the nerves are just so painful all the time. And I, looking at the teasel, and I'm like, yeah, maybe I do, right? And I said, try this. And she took it, and it fixed her. And I don't mean it just made it not hurt today. It fixed it. And so, you know, teasel, the Chinese name for teasel, and I don't remember what the Chinese name is, but it means restore that which is broken. You know, so it's like it renews and reboots the nerve. You know, sometimes your computer gets all snarled up and freaked out, you know, and you got to turn it off and turn it back on, right? Well, it seems like that's what the teasel did for this gal's nerves. It just rebooted them and said, look, guys, it is not your job to hurt all the time. Cut it out. And they did. And so, you know, I've used it on fibromyalgia cases. I used it on that gal with really dramatic results. I used it on my stinging nettle. That was fun. And then that same week, so I had the lady with the nerve pain come in. I had a lady with fibromyalgia come in the same week. And then I was down in Provo or somewhere in Utah, I don't know where I was, at a convention, and this young gal comes up and says, do you have anything for MS? And I started to say, no, I don't know anything about MS. I'm a veterinarian. We don't get MS. You know, right? Docs don't get MS. This was, I don't know, 15 years ago. Maybe not. Maybe 10 years ago. Anyway, and I hear in the back of my head, nerve pain, right? I thought, oh, maybe I do have something. And I gave her the teasel. I says, try this. And she said, how much should I take? And I says, I have no idea, right? I've never used this stuff. I don't know. I said, take a drop 3 times a day and increase it every day. And if you get to 30 drops 3 times a day, call me, right? So anyway, 2 weeks later, I get an email from her. She says, Doc, send me a picture of this plant. I don't ever want to not have this plant. I feel so much better. She says, nothing happened. When I got to 14 drops 3 times a day, it was like somebody flipped a switch, and I feel pretty dang good, right? And this was a gal whose MS was so bad that 2 or 3 days a week her husband had to carry her to the shower. This young 20-something mom, right? And so anyway, I was actually telling this story on a plant walk like a year later, and this little gal in the front row raises her hand and says, it was me, right? And then we all bawl, you know. But you know, she said she's still feeling pretty good taking the teasel. You know, it's not 100%, but she was off a lot of her meds, and she was feeling pretty good most of the time. So teasel's really great. All right, and topically too. You can put teasel topically on nerve pain, and it'll help too. So anyway, that's fun. Seekernan says Yarrow works good for fire ant stings. That's right. I haven't used it on fire ants, but I have used it on bee stings and wasp stings. It's very good. The yarrow flower, the leaf, chew it up, make a spit poultice, slap it on. So here this gal says she's had chronic pain for 16 years that never goes away. Wow, I am so sorry. They don't think it's neuropathy. Wow, that hurts. you know, I would try some of those things. I would try some of the nervines we talked about internally and topically. That's what I would try, and see if that helps you. You know, try some skullcap or valerian. St. John's wort's another nervine that works good. Chamomile. Try that internally and topically, and see if that does you any good. So there you go. Jeff Mitzel, who's a buddy of mine, says Nerve Renew for your burning nerve pain. Try that. I haven't tried that, but Jeff's been using it and he likes it. And I like Jeff, so you can try some of that. Here's somebody that has a feverfew and lemon balm recipe for migraines. Very good. Okay, so what nerves would you replace to keep on hand to replace ibuprofen and Tylenol? So yeah, so for headache stuff, we've talked about some of the mints that are good: basil, rosemary, lemon balm, those guys. Willow bark is good. Spirea is good. Those guys, that would be good for headache, pain, and or any inflammation. I mean, if you got a sore elbow or something, anything you take aspirin for, right? You can take those for. Let's see. What can I use for a skin rash on the face and head? Kathleen wants to know. Well, that's a good question. Skin rashes, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, if you have a skin issue, it's because your liver's mad. Okay? And so what I usually recommend for people in those kind of scenarios is that they do something for their liver. Burdock is great. Yellow dock is great. Those two plants are particularly good. And basically what that does is it cleanses the liver, it cleanses the blood, and it decreases the body's need to have stuff. You know, if your liver gets overworked, your body tries to get rid of stuff through the glands in your skin. I mean, basically that's the metaphor. But that's what's happening. And if you can make your liver happy with burdock or yellow dock or Oregon grape and those kinds of things, don't take Oregon grape if you're pregnant, but you can take burdock and yellow dock. That'll really help. We have a formula called liver. We have a formula called skin, which is basically a liver formula, right? Try that one. Look at the ingredients in that, make your own, or go buy a bottle if you don't want to make your own. But that skin formula would be the one to try. And if that's not it, it may be an allergy thing, and you might go down another road with that. But if it comes and goes, it might be an allergy thing. If it's itchy and it flares up suddenly, then you might try something like nettles or brigham tea for an antihistamine effect. If you go to the website, go to homegrownherbalist.net, and there's a formula called histamine, and look at the ingredients in that. Those are the guys you want. Okay, look at those herbs. All right. So Provident Prepper says, will essential oils work as well as tinctures? Well, yeah, sometimes. Essential oils are great, but they're different, okay? And, an essential oil is just the oil from the plant, just the essential oil. And sometimes that's most of the show, right? Like with the mint family, with peppermint, the essential oil is a lot of what it's doing. But there's other stuff it's doing too. And so if you make a tincture, you get everything. If you do an essential oil, you just get the oils. But yeah, you can use an essential oil of peppermint, for example. My wife gets headaches once in a while. That's what she does. She puts a little peppermint on the back of her neck or on the back of her head or under her nose. She puts a little peppermint oil, and that'll often help with those kinds of things. I think you have to be a little careful with essential oils. Make sure that you know what you're doing. Some of them are very strong and can burn you. And also, if everybody would please do me a favor and quit putting essential oils in diffusers, because we're killing dogs. All right, the veterinary profession is seeing dogs dying of liver failure because of essential oil diffusers. Their livers are different than ours, and they process things differently, and so they turn some of those essential oils into toxins and die. So don't do that. I'm not sure we were, I don't know. I like to look at things and say, well, God made this stuff. How did he intend us to use it? And I'm not sure he intended us to poke stuff in diffusers and breathe them all day. You know what I mean? So, anyway, Rough-Hewn Homestead says, what's good for chronic back pain in an elderly person with many back problems? Well, I would use the anti-inflammatories, that joint formula we have. Look at the herbs in that one. Go to homegrownherbalist.net. Yeah, cats too, by the way, not just dogs. The cats are having trouble with the... Cats really don't like essential oils. Desiree reminds us. So thanks for that. What were we talking about? Oh, chronic back pain in an elderly person. So the anti-inflammatory herbs, turmeric, boswellia, yucca, a little tinge of black pepper, those kinds of things. Go look at the joint formula on homegrownherbalist.net. Look at those herbs. Those are the guys you want. Okay, and you can make your own, or you can buy it from us. You can also use topically tinctures of those same kinds of things. You can use tinctures of the nervine herbs, like valerian or skullcap or chamomile, those guys, right? We have that brain and nerve PaneAway, PANE, not PAIN, brain and nerve PaneAway that has got some antispasmodics in it, which might help relax the muscles so they're not spasming. It's got some nervines in it, which might help. And then if you took the joint stuff internally or something like that, that would probably help a lot. Somebody with a funny name. Oh, Income Trader Futures. Okay, I was trying to read what the heck that said. Yes, she asks, or he, do you have Teasel? Yeah, we have Teasel. Teasel is Teasel, and it's on the website. We've got the tincture. So try that. That'll cure what ails you. So Jean says, besides trying skullcap and other nervines for 16-year pain, also test for chronic infections such as Lyme, Mycoplasma, pneumonia, EBV. Yeah, and that antimicrobial herbs are effective for these. That's absolutely right. Especially the Epstein-Barr virus. The Epstein-Barr virus is a herpes virus, and it's the virus that causes mononucleosis, right? Kissing disease. But all those herpes viruses get into your nerve roots, and they stay there forever. You'll never get rid of them. But a lot of times when we have chronic inflammation, it can lead to autoimmune stuff. I mean, you get so inflamed for so long that your immune system says, oh, what the heck, let's just be mad at everybody, right? And now you're getting inflammation from yourself. You're allergic to yourself. And so sometimes if we suppress that Epstein-Barr virus or the mycoplasma or whatever it is, that can really help. What I do with people that have chronic autoimmune stuff, the first thing I do usually is I'll get them on a leaky gut protocol. And we have a nice leaky gut kit if you need one. We get a leaky gut protocol to heal up the gut lining so that they're not getting exposed to stuff as much. That settles the immune system. But then sometimes I'll do that Epstein-Barr. I have a tincture. It's called Epstein-Barr. So, as I recall. Anyway, we'll use that on them. And sometimes I had a lady with fibromyalgia that really helped. We did the leaky gut and the Epstein-Barr, and that helped her a lot. And then, of course, we were using some other stuff, Teasel and some other things for pain for her that helped. Okay, let's see if we can figure out where we are here. Can you use dried dehydrated emulsions as effectively as fresh? Oh yeah, absolutely. That's what I always use. I'm too lazy to go out and dig up, marshmallow root every time I need it. I just use the dry powder on my shelf. So yeah, you add water and they're slimy again right now. So yeah, no worry there. What do I think about Corydalis? Corydalis is a very effective herb. I never use it, but I've never heard anything but good about it. And I don't not use it because I don't like it. I don't use it because it doesn't grow locally, and I just haven't been in the habit of using it. There's like 8,000 herbs out there, and that's one I haven't ever used. But it's a good herb. Okay. So here's a nice lady that wants to burn myrrh and frankincense resins instead of diffusing essential oil. Would that hurt cats and hedgehogs? I want a hedgehog. That's fun. Yeah, I think incense and a burned incense from frankincense and myrrh is going to be less problematic than an essential oil for those guys. So yeah, you're probably okay doing that. Yeah, myrrh and frankincense. Interesting. That they were. I was just over in the Holy Land. We went back to Israel over Christmas. Took my wife and one of my kids that's still home, and we went there. And you got to do that. Put that on your bucket list because that'll change your life. But anyway, we were, tromping around some of the places that Jesus tromped around, and I was thinking about myrrh and frankincense, and when they brought that to him, in the Christmas story, they bring him the frankincense and the myrrh and the gold, right? And the frankincense and the myrrh were worth more money than the gold in those days, and it wasn't it was the shipping, that got you. Because you had to pay some Bedouin to sit on a camel for 2 years and go to Arabia and back to bring you your frankincense. Now it's pretty inexpensive and you can get it the next day from FedEx, right? But anyway, in the good old days, frankincense and myrrh were very expensive. Myrrh's a really good antibiotic, and frankincense is boswellia. We've been talking about that all night. Really good anti-inflammatory. Also, the Jews believed, and I think the Catholics still do some incense, but they believed that incense would improve your spiritual sensitivity, and I think that's true too. So anyway, interesting. Okay, what about neuropathy? Well, neuropathy, if it's diabetic neuropathy, there's an amino acid, and because I just wanted to think of it, I now can't think of it. But if I think about it for a second, it'll come into my brain. I recommend this probably twice a week, for years and years. Alpha lipoic acid. Thank you, brain. Sometimes he comes through for me. Alpha lipoic acid is it's just a nutritive. You can buy it at the grocery store. Anywhere that sells vitamins will have alpha lipoic acid, and sometimes that's very effective for neuropathy. You have to take a lot of it, 600 or 800 milligrams several times a day. But a lot of times that helps, especially if it's diabetic neuropathy. But I would try it on any neuropathy. And if that doesn't work, you can certainly do, the nervines and the anti-inflammatories. One of the other things you might try on a diabetic neuropathy or a neuropathy is some vasodilators and circulation improvers. So you might try a little ginkgo. You might try some cayenne internally and topically. You might try some ginger topically, just to warm things up and get things moving. That might help. Mary wants to know what works for rheumatoid arthritis. So you can use all the same things for the inflammation that we've talked about for regular arthritis. But rheumatoid arthritis is an autoimmune disease. You're attacking your own joints. And so I also do, in addition to the anti-inflammatories and the topical, nervines and lotions and whatever, you also want to get your autoimmune stuff under control. And the way we're going to do that is with, I'm going to start you on a leaky gut program. And then there's some things we can do sometimes that are very effective for calming the immune response. The leaky gut does a lot. Formula does a lot. But there's also a formula, herbs like Romania, herbs like astragalus. If you go to Teasel, if you go to the website, go to homegrownherbalist.net, and there's a formula called ImmuCool, and there's one called Immunity Auto Calm. Those two, look at the herbs in those formulas, and those are the kind of the guys that you're after. And I've used either or both of those. It's not that one's better or that I use one or the other for different reasons. I just try, they're just different combinations of herbs with similar properties. So I try one, and then I try the other one, and then I try both, and usually one of those three options helps a lot. What can you use for plantar fasciitis? Well, you're not going to like what I say because it's no fun. But what you need to do, Isaac, is have your wife get her rolling pin and put you on the bed and take your shoes off. And it works better if it's a little rolling pin. And have her roll very enthusiastically the bottoms of your feet with that rolling pin and the backs of your calves. And that really breaks things up and loosens things up, and it hurts like crazy. But it helps. Other than that, I would use anti-inflammatory herbs. I would use the like the stuff that's in that joint formula, the boswellia, the turmeric, the yucca, guys like that. Some burdock. Anyway, that's what I would do. My wife had that pretty bad for a while, and that's what we did with her, and it straightened her out. But I think the rolling pin did as much as anything. Also, you can get shoes and inserts and stuff that will help that if you can find somebody that knows what they're doing. All right. So, let's see. Where are we at? Oh, I got lost. Oh, I got lost a lot. Hold on, I got to scroll way up. Somehow I got. Okay, plantar fasciitis. Apiary Girl says that her doctor recommended rubbing cinnamon and lavender and pepper essential oils on, and it's helping with the swelling. I don't know what she was rubbing it on, but yeah, those guys. So the cinnamon and the pepper, what are they doing? They're warming, right? They're warming. And lavender's got a lot of really great pain-killing properties. It's a mint, okay? And all those mints want to calm somebody down and knock somebody out and make them feel better. So, yeah, I'm not surprised that worked for you. Okay. Oh, did I miss a question? Somebody says I missed a question from David Sanchez. I don't see it. All right, let's read what he said about that question. Nicole says, David, I don't think he saw your question, but my take is that some herbs pull minerals and other things. I'm not sure you can duplicate that with hydroponic gardening. Yeah, so if your question, David, was are hydroponic herbs as good as herbs in the dirt? They're probably not. They're probably not. A lot of what's good about an herb is the micronutrients and the microminerals and the things that they're pulling up out of the dirt. Burdock, those roots go down a long way. Alfalfa, that goes a long way. A lot of these herbs, comfrey, the roots go down a long way. They're pulling up a lot of nutrients that are hard to get in any other way. So I think they're probably superior. I mean, hydroponic stuff is way better than no stuff. I mean, I'm not against it. But yeah, there are some things that are in the dirt that are good for plants. Okay. All right, Evan put some stuff. There's your leaky gut kit if anybody needs one. Oh, here it is. Well, that's weird. Okay, so I think David Sanchez's question about the hydroponic gardening, it's weird that her answer was above his question. I don't know how that happened. All right. Yeah, so that's the answer. I think that there's some things in the dirt that are good. And interestingly, if you're going to grow herbs, don't be too nice to them. Make them grow the way God makes them grow. So if you have a desert plants and you give them a lot of water, they're going to be a little different than if they're working for a living, right? The herbs that are struggling a little are going to be more medicinal than the herbs that aren't. A great example of that is yellow dock. We've got yellow dock growing in our beds just to show people, when we do plant walks and stuff. But I would never use that plant because it gets a drink every day, And so, yellow dock is a plant that likes to grow in the water. You can go down and pull it out of the creek, and it's lots easier to harvest it out of the mud in the creek than it is to go up the ditch bank 10 feet and dig it out of the gravel, right? But the roots of the yellow dock in the creek are white, and the roots up in the gravel are dark yellow, and that's the medicine, see? So you got to get the guys that are working for a living, the guys that are struggling and wanting to conserve nutrients and medicines and chemicals to fight bugs and viruses and things. That's the guy you want. You don't want the guy down in the creek that's living on welfare and doesn't have to do anything, right? So it's sometimes if you want the best medicine, find some plants that are working a little bit and struggling a little bit, and you'll get more concentration of the phytochemicals you're after. All right. Okay, let's see. Wayne says he's been using Corydalis for a long time for sore muscles and joint pain. There you go. Good for Wayne. I like that. Provident Prepper couldn't find the teasel, and then she did. That's good. All right. So Chris says, not a question, but I'm going to make some tea with your joint support and rest easy and some extra comfrey and marshmallow. May I give you a little advice about that? The rest easy and the comfrey and marshmallow would be pretty nice. The joint support tastes awful. Okay. I wouldn't make a tea out of that one. The way I would take Doc Jones's joint support formula, if you're going to take the powder, put it in a little water down the hatch and then drink a lot of something nice. Or if you're going to do the tincture, put that in a little water down the hatch and drink a lot of something nice. That's how you do it. That is awful tasting stuff. Boswellia is not tasty and yucca is not tasty. And anyway, I wouldn't I wouldn't make a tea. I have to tell you, I was in a lecture. I was doing a master's seminar, and incidentally, we're doing a master's seminar. If you want to know about pain, come to the master's seminar, and we're going to really get deep into this stuff. Go to the website, go to homegrownherbalist.net, and click on workshops or events or whatever it is. I think it says events. Click on that, and you can see when we're doing a plant walk or a workshop where you live. You know, I've got knees that are no good, you know, because I was a dairy vet for 20 years, standing on concrete and getting kicked in the knees all the time. And so I got a lot of miles on my knees, and my knees were killing me. And so I says to my son-in-law, hey, give me some of that joint tincture. And he brought the bottle over, and I just took the dropper and squirted it in my mouth. And this is in front of a whole room full of people, right? Who I'm trying to sell this stuff to, you know. I squirted it in my mouth. Oh, I heard that's the most awful thing. Anyway, I had forgotten how bad it was, and so I can tell you from experience, put it in a little water, because you got to drink all of it. But don't make a tea, that'll be yucky. Okay, can you use valerian root essential oil topically for back pain? I don't know, I've never used valerian root essential oil. Can you get an essential oil out of valerian root? I don't know. I'm sure it would work if you can. All right, she says hedgehogs are fun pets. I want a hedgehog. All right. Audrey says, besides olive leaf, what can I use for chronic and severe sinus infection and pain? Cayenne. Use cayenne. That'll clean you right out. Seriously, put a little cayenne in a little water and put it in your mouth and leave it there as long as you can stand it. And that'll open things up and get things draining and moving. A lot of times you just got to get stuff moving, right? If that doesn't, you know, if that's not the only problem, then you can kill the bugs too, and you can use, you know, immune stimulating herbs. Go look at the immunity formula. It's just called immunity. I have these very creative names for some of these. Anyway, look at the herbs in there. Those are the guys you're after. And then there's one called Bug Buster. That's a good bacterial, you know, antibacterial. All right. All right, so we got just a couple more questions, and then we're going to wrap it up. Let's see, where are we at? Oh, geez, I got lost again. Okay, Randy's got really bad back, no discs. Same thing, Randy. Try the muscles, the antispasmodics. We've got a formula called Nomospasm, N-O-M-O spasm, S-P-A-Z-M. Look at that one. Look at the nervines. Look at that PaneAway formula. Skullcap valerian topically or internally. Cramp bark lobelia topically and internally. Plantar fasciitis, we did that one. Go back and listen to that one. Alpha lipoic acid, isn't that what I said? Yeah, that's what I said. Degenerative disc issue, same thing. That was what the last guy had. Comfrey oil, infused oil, works on plantar fasciitis. That's right. That's right. Comfrey is very soothing, interestingly. And the way you make an infused oil is you just put the plant in some olive oil and, you know, soak it, or you can do it in a double boiler. But yeah, that can be very helpful for things. Leg cramps and Charlie horses, you want to use antispasmodic herbs like cramp bark or lobelia. Look at that muscles, no more spasms formula. Look at the herbs in there and you'll see who can help you. Karen says lavender is good for burns. That's right. What would I suggest for concussion? I would suggest that you don't play sports anymore for a couple of weeks so your brain stops hurting, number one. But otherwise, same things we talked about for headaches, Jen. Yes. So this gal says, or guy maybe, I don't know, says the comfrey oil for several weeks, a couple times a day, really helps that plantar fasciitis. That's great to know. I haven't used it for that. Leg cramps, yeah, right. Magnesium, same as the uterine cramps. If you get leg cramps a lot, you're not getting enough calcium and magnesium. Okay. When I was in Peru, I was a missionary down in Peru for a couple of years, and I used to get these horrible leg cramps in the middle of the night because I didn't eat any dairy products at all while I was in Peru. You know, I wasn't getting any calcium. Is there anything good for blood glucose? There is. That's another long subject, but look at the, there's a formula called pancreas blood sugar on the website. Go look at that, and those are the herbs you want. Those are the kind of guys. Bitter melon, somebody says, yep, he's in there. Cinnamon can do it. There's a lot of them. Go look at that formula because we're running out of time here. Okay, let's see. Anything else here? Can you use herbs in capsules? Sure. And sometimes that's fine, and sometimes it doesn't work. Okay, because it depends what you're using it for. If you're taking cayenne to clear your sinuses, like the lady a minute ago, don't put it in a capsule or it won't help you at all, right? But if you're taking it for your blood pressure, that's fine. If you read in my book, The Homegrown Herbalist, there's a little blurb in there about capsules and when I like them and when I don't. Are there uses for cleavers? Absolutely. Cleavers is a great lymphatic. It's good for draining lymph nodes that can be painful. It's good for edema. It's good for bladder infections. It's good a tea for burns. That would be good. This gal's wondering about using alcohol tinctures for leaky gut. Says that alcohol can open up the gaps in the gut. Yeah, alcohol can be irritating, but the tinctures you're using so little, it's not an issue. Don't worry about that. I mean, if you're drinking booze like you mean it, yeah, that'll wreck your guts if you got leaky gut. But if you're just taking, half a teaspoon or stuff, that's okay. And yeah, capsules are fine. We offer a lot of things in capsule form. Some things I don't. So if it's on my website and you can't get it in a capsule, that's because I don't think you should take it that way. Okay. All right. I've taken your nutritive powder before in juice, but I ran out. Let me see here. She says, I bought all the powdered herbs and made sure they were the same, but it tastes awful when I drink. I don't know. Sometimes herbs vary a little bit. Sometimes you'll get a dandelion that's way more bitter than it was last year. I would guess it was something like that. Okay. Cleavers, you use the whole plant. CRPS, I don't know what that is. CRPS. Send me an email and I'll tell you what I think. All right. So, yeah, cleavers, it's the whole plant. So I think we better wrap up, guys. I'll be monitoring this, and you're welcome to put questions on here, even after the, if you're watching this video 10 years from now, you can put a question on there. I'll probably see it and answer it. But anyway, we need to wrap up. If we can be of help to you, we'd love to. Go to homegrownherbalist.net, see what we can do for you. And we really appreciate your support so much. You people are just great. I always learn something neat. I learned 2 or 3 neat things tonight. So that's fun. And you guys in New York, I'm very sorry we kept you up so late. Anyway, this is Doc Jones from the Homegrown Herbalist School of Botanical Medicine. And good night, and thanks much. Remember, if you want a PDF of the slides, send an email to info@homegrownherbalist.net, and we'll get that headed your way. Thanks very much. This is Doc Jones signing off.